Essential Self-Care Podcast, a podcast for those of us who are, let's face it, too busy for self-care. In this podcast, you will hear real life stories from people who leaned into their self-care as they were navigating life's storms. You'll learn practical tips, tools, and strategies to incorporate self-care into your own busy life as well. You'll hear from expert guests sharing their expertise on specific tools and modalities of self-care to optimize your well-being in your life, career, and relationships. I'm your host, Dr. Sheetal Ajmani. I am a physician, best-selling author, and founder of Radiant Living Institute, where I guide high-achieving women to get unstuck and learn to live radiantly again through major life transitions. Quick disclaimer before we dive into the episode, please know that this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always seek the advice of your own health practitioner or mental health provider for your specific situation. Now, let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. I am so excited to welcome Alyse Freda-Colon. She is a therapist turned coach who now helps women stop dating emotionally unavailable men to actually find that safe, supportive, let down your hair relationship that you have always wanted. But today, Alyse is back to share a bit of her own self-care journey with us. So I am so excited to dive in. First of all, welcome to the show, Alyse.
Thank you so much. I wanted to show you something, actually. We're in my office, totally unplanned. I actually have this sign.
Oh, I love it. So for those of you who are just listening to the audio, so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. But if you're just listening to the audio, she just pulled out a sign that says self-care isn't selfish, and she keeps it on her desk, which is so lovely. Exactly. Self-care is not selfish. In fact, it is one of the most selfless things you can do because it helps you show up as your best self.
Also, too, in addition, I'm not sure if you're even aware of this, but in addition to the dating program, I have another coaching program for women that is all about self-care that is called Are You Mad at Me? And it's really for women who spend an inordinate amount of time concerned with how other people view them, what other people think of them to their own detriment, where they're doing things they don't want to do. They are not being who they authentically are because they are so busy trying to make sure everybody likes them.
I love that. We are going to have, because I definitely want to dive into your self-care journey today, but we are definitely going to have to dive into that on another episode. And actually, that is very similarly related to the book that I am working on writing right now. I have the first draft done. I am getting ready to submit it to my editor actually in 2 days as of the time of this recording. So I'm really excited about that. And that is on a similar note of really for women who are really killing ourselves, trying to meet everyone else's expectations of ourselves. And the book is really to give you a path to move forward, to start trusting your own inner voice again, and to start living life for you once again. So important. And I think the fact that I'm writing a book about this, many of my programs and my coaching with clients is specifically focused ultimately at helping them start to recognize and honor their own inner voice. And the fact that you have a program that also, is similarly aligned, I think is just a testament to how important this is and how ingrained it has been for such a long time, especially for women, to kind of meet that sort of people pleasing, these expectations of us, and many of us now starting to break away from that to really tune into our authentic selves. So I love that you brought that up, and I know we could dive way into that today, but I really want to dive into your self-care journey. So we will definitely have you back on for another episode for that. So for today and for now, can you share with us an instance in your own life where self-care became no longer an option, but an absolute priority for you? And more importantly, what specific tools, lessons, and modalities did you turn to at that time?
Well, I was several years ago, probably about 10 years ago or so, going through a couple of very, very stressful life events all at the same time. And it was taxing. And what ended up happening was I was having all of this tooth pain, and I went to the dentist, and she couldn't figure. She said, "When was the last time you had a dental? Like, I come here every 6 months." She's like, "Your teeth are crumbling," and I think I had to have like 4 root canals or something. Like my teeth were such a mess, and it was all from grinding my teeth at night. So it seems as though all of the object, everything I was hanging on to was kind of settling here, and I was destroying my teeth at night. And I cannot tell you the amount of dental work I have had to have since that point trying to correct this. And even using a mouth guard, it still tends to be the place that a lot of my stress goes and where it sort of manifests itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been, not always, but for the last 30 some odd years, I've always exercised to some degree, but I kicked it into high gear and said, I've got to find a way, I've got to find somewhere to put all of this stress because it's not stopping. And I need to have a constructive way of channeling it. So I began exercising more. And since the pandemic, I used to go to a gym. I'm a spin, like an indoor cycle person. And I did that a few times a week. But since the pandemic now, I have a bike at the house and I have a treadmill at the house. And I work out every day. And I'm going to say there's not been one day in the last 3 or 4 years that I haven't. And it is the most important thing that I can do for myself. And I think one of the most underutilized and most accessible self care uh, thing that people can do. That, I mean, unless you hurt yourself, really has no downside.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing a bit of your journey. I want to just kind of reflect on a couple of points here. One is that you mentioned that during that time a few years ago, you had multiple major life events and stressors going on at the same time. I just want to point that out just because so often it's not just one thing. So often, like when something major is happening, it is like multiple major life events happening around the same time. And um and that's just how it often is. And that's just how it often is for many of us. And then the other thing is, I really appreciate you sharing your story about the tooth pain and how, your body was holding on to stress through grinding and in your jaw and in your teeth. And I think it's so important, for all of us, our body holds on to stress in different ways and different places. Like for me, it is undoubtedly my neck and my shoulders, for sure. Like I know when those areas start to get really tight, and I mean when it gets painful, then I know there is something major going on in my life, right? Um, but if we can start to identify where in our own body that stress starts to appear, and if we can then start to cultivate that awareness to recognize those signs within our own body earlier, so that we can start to address it with whatever self-care tool or modality speaks to you, right? Alyse shared for you, like it's definitely been exercise, and just keeping up with that has been absolutely pivotal and transformative for you on your own self-care journey and your own health journey, physical journey. And so, but for anyone listening, like just starting to recognize, I think, an important nugget to pull from that is just starting to recognize, where do you carry stress within your own body? Because it is different for all of us. And then can you start to cultivate that awareness sooner so that you can begin to address that? Now, I think, the way you described your journey, it sounds like you were doing some exercise before this moment, but then you increased it. Like, what did that journey look like for you?
Eh, well, I was actually, when I was going to a gym, it was classes. I did group classes. So it was really based around the times that worked. It's a production though, to drive to a gym and take a class and then come home and get ready and go to work. So it was taxing on my schedule as someone who is been in private practice. So it wasn't to the frequency that I think I needed, because I also, every day take in a lot of stuff. I talk to a lot of people. I hear a lot of things, and there's something to be said for, like, where is that going? I think you develop a healthy level of detachment just to survive when you're in a field where you can sometimes hear some pretty tough stuff. But there's a lot coming in. Where is it going? And I think you need a place to be able to put that, like, as a desert. For me, it's a designated place. Like, oh, I got to get this out. And if I can run or walk or cycle, it's like I feel like I drop everything there and I sort of leave it, and then I can, it kind of like empties the tank a bit, so that you're then able to go on and keep doing what you do. The other thing that I also started doing was going for massages as a preventive tool, as opposed to this one-off luxury time. And it's not that pleasant, actually, to have the massage. I mean, it's not like, oh, this is so great. It's painful, but you can start to see where you hold, where the spots are that are like excruciating, and that's where the stress is like sitting, and
I'm just laughing because I agree with you completely. Like, for me, going to get a massage, I love going to get massages, but I wouldn't say it's like the most relaxing thing, because, like I said, I hold on to so much tension in my neck and my shoulders and my back. Like, it is painful. Like, and even when I'm not on a regular massage cycle right now, but even during times in my life when I have been, the massage therapist is always like, you need to come more often. Like, no matter how often I'm going, I always need to go more
yeah,
often.
massage. But even now, when I think of the word massage, to me, it's like indulgent and decadent and like almost bougie kind of. You know what I mean? Like, oh, for my massage. But again, if you consider everything you take in, other people's emotions and stuff and all the stresses in your life, that if they're settling in your body somewhere, you need to get rid of that somehow.
Yeah.
And so for me, the physical exercise is really great. Plus, I'm a pretty high energy person, and I need to burn some of that off. But the massage, I feel I started to deliberately do that, not on a, oh, wouldn't that be nice basis, but on a every month I'm going, it's in the calendar, and I'm doing this, as I said, kind of preventively, almost like a medical prevention thing, where I'm trying to avoid a problem by doing this routinely.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes a big difference, because going for the, once or twice a year massage is not gonna cut it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And looking at it as a preventative that is just as important, if not more important, than waiting for another crisis to hit to start to address it, right? But looking at, okay, these are non-negotiables for my self-care,
Mhm.
right? And that's kind of what I'm hearing, like exercise and this daily exercise and this monthly massage, like having somewhere to put that. And when you described also of like, all day long as a therapist, you're taking all of this in, right? And certainly as a physician, when I was in clinical practice, I mean, just day in and day out, I think anyone in this sort of healing, nurturing sort of space does that. And many of us who enter these fields tend to be very empathetic in nature. So having a greater tendency even to kind of take that on, and it has to go somewhere. Right. I always quote this, and I read this from The Body Keeps the Score, that the word emotion comes from emovere, which means to move out. These emotions are energy that is meant to move out and through us. And when we don't give it a channel to do so, it gets stuck in our body in some way, shape, or form, right? For you, it was years ago with your teeth and the grinding. For me, when it happens, it's my neck, my shoulders, right? And so for our listeners, I encourage just kind of hearing from our examples, kind of to think about, where is it for you that shows up? Quick shout out to today's sponsor, Reclaim Your Radiance, Radiant Living Institute's signature coaching program designed to help you reclaim your worth, renew your energy, and restore your happiness in your life, career, and relationships. This 6-module curriculum has already helped countless women rediscover themselves through life's storms. From setting difficult boundaries within toxic relationships to finding their inner strength and power while navigating divorce and co parenting, to aligning their career and business with their authentic self, and to learning how to live for themselves again after their kids have left the nest. This program has been a guiding force for women to live unapologetically and shine brightly within their lives once again, or often, even for the first time ever. Experience the results for yourself. Head over to radiantlivinginstitute.com/reclaim your radiance to learn more and get started.
And a lot of people, let's say, particularly, I guess with the massage too, the exercise, oh, yeah, that sounds nice. If only I had the time. And it's not about if I have the time, it's about making it a priority. And I schedule exercise as I would anything else. It's not something that gets left to if I have time at the end of the day, then maybe. It's at the top of the priority list. It's a matter of where is it going to fit in better? Is it going to be in the morning or after work? But it's happening. So it's non-negotiable. It's if you frame it that it's something that'll happen if I have time, it will never happen. The same way, if you consider saving money from your paycheck and say, well, after I've paid all my bills, if there's anything left, I'll put it in my savings. There's sure as shit not going to be anything left at the end. You have to take the savings off the top before you have had a chance to fold it into your daily money spending. You have to take it off the top or it's not going to happen. It's the same
That
idea.
is such a great example. I love that example. That is such a great example, right? And because when you were explaining it a little bit earlier, too, of just like what I was visualizing is your to-do list. And for so many of us, it is like at the bottom of the to-do list. If I get time, if I reach the bottom of my to-do list, how many of us actually reach the bottom of
Never,
our
you
to-do
never
list?
do because there's always stuff being added.
Right. Right. So, okay, now if this is at the top of your list, as you're describing, it sounds like it is for you. Okay, well, this is a non-negotiable. This is one of my top priorities of the day, or the top priority of my day. And so I'm going to address that. And I'm curious, and you did kind of mention it, but I think this is just such a big mindset shift for so many people, right? And you did allude to a few examples, but I want to just kind of hear it from you. What do you think was the biggest factor in making this a non-negotiable for you, in making this mindset shift where this is just, I mean, this isn't even, it sounds like to me, and I'm just hearing this with such strength and conviction from your voice and your tone, that this is absolutely a priority for you and absolutely a non-negotiable. So what was it? Because I know for so many people that can be such a hard mindset shift to make. What was it for you that was like that? Or was there like a sort of turning point or a certain perspective that was like, yes, this is 100% a priority?
Well, I tend to be pretty. I know my mind, and I don't have trouble expressing myself or making my needs known. But I have known many, many, many people where um, they maybe, let's say, they don't feel that they have the right to claim the time for themselves, or that it's being selfish, or they're taking time away from someone else, and so they feel almost as though they need permission, or they need to have a good enough reason to do something that's in their own self-interest. I don't know that I ever necessarily subscribe to that philosophy. I made things more non-negotiable because I needed to. But for a woman, let's say, who has kind of bought into the, let's say, martyrdom sort of idea of, I'm here to serve my kids and they come first, or whatever. You have to decide that you need to be on the priority list and pretty high up, I would argue to take care of anyone effectively, you need to take care of you. You need to. And somewhere along the line, this idea of it's selfish to take time for yourself planted itself here, and people have sort of signed up for that and agreed, which is nuts. Because why is it okay? Think about this. Okay, so I don't have time to exercise. If your child was injured and had to go to physical therapy 4 days a week, at first you'd say, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to find that time? And then you know what you would do? Figure it out. You're not going to say, well, sorry, I just can't find the time, so it's just not going to happen. That would never happen if it was someone's child, right? Why do you not grant yourself the same grace? I need this, and so I'm going to make sure it happens. And it's as much a priority as anything else because it feeds my soul. Why is that not okay? And when did you decide that you were not worthy of that? And that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I agree completely. I love what you said. Doing things because it feeds your soul.
Yeah.
Why can't we just do that?
I love to read, and I read every night. And there's something about sort of just like, okay, now I'm sort of not turning off my brain, but like this, I'm going to go into this world now. And reading, I love that so much. And that's also a non-negotiable to me. I want to read my book. And if you need to talk to me, come in and talk to me, but I'm going to be here reading my book. And I don't have to apologize for that. I don't have to make up excuses for it. Yeah. I want women to figure out who they are, what they love, and own it unapologetically, and not try to be someone you aren't to make someone else happy in whatever form that takes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. A few years ago, I wrote on this index card and I put it on my desk and I wrote these words. I wrote, what brings you joy? ? Do more of that, period. Like what brings you joy? Do more of that. And I'm still on this journey of that. And, I think another thing that plays a factor into this is, and Brene Brown talks about this, that in our modern society and culture right now, we wear stress and busyness as like a badge of honor. And I think that definitely plays a role into this as well, right? And so can we shift that? Can we shift that perspective, right? That taking care of yourself is important, is a priority, that it's okay to do things for no other reason than it feeds your soul, for no other reason than it brings you joy and pleasure. Right? And can we be okay with that? And it starts with us being okay with it ourselves, right?
Which then ties into just what you were saying at the beginning about the women and the selfishness piece is the fear of many women is, what are they going to say? What are people going to think? And you getting comfortable with someone is going to think, okay, I do this with clients all the time. Okay, so this person says, hey, can you run the bake sale this week? And you say, oh, I'm sorry, that isn't going to work for me. And then you shut up and you tolerate the feeling that you have, worrying this person thinks I'm terrible, they're mad at me, whatever the situation is, deciding you are or aren't going to do something and letting the other person handle their own emotional regulation about it and not making it your business to change how you think they perceive you. I think it starts there. Letting go of the idea, I need to control how this person views me. Because if your life is spent like, I got to make sure everybody else is happy, then you're never going to be able to figure out what is it that brings me joy, because it's up to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, we had mentioned this a little bit on the previous episode that you were on, of just like, you don't have control over anyone else's perception of you, right? Like the only thing we have control over is our own mindset, our own thoughts, our own words, our own actions, our own patterns, right? Like, so if you're spending your whole life or so much energy of your day-to-day life trying to control how other people view you.
It's an epidemic. This is one of the biggest struggles I see with women. Again, primarily, I work with more women, but I think it's more social conditioning and how we're raised
Yeah.
that you make
Yeah, I
other.
think there's a lot of deep-rooted factors that play a role into this. So it isn't, anyone who is on this journey or struggling with this, myself included, I'll raise my hand to that. It's you're not alone. Like, there is so much that goes into this. There is social conditioning, generational, cultural, right, familial. Like, there's just so much that goes into this. But it's important that we start looking at that, and it's important that we start breaking through some of that.
And that women also, like you said, what brings me joy, I want to do more of that. And the unapologetic part to me is so important. And what I see over and over again is, if let's say someone asked me to do something and I decide I don't want to do it, is the making excuses or trying to come up with a good enough reason why I'm saying no that will suffice or that will satisfy this person, as opposed to, no, that doesn't work for me, and then zipping it, as opposed to, oh, I'd love to, but oh, I'm busy that day. Because then what you really do, you back yourself in a corner, because then the person can say, oh, well, that's okay, we'll change the day for you. What day would work? You weren't clear. You didn't just say no. You made up a little story, and now they're trying to accommodate you, thinking that you really want to do the thing, instead of, oh, that's not really my thing, thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's
No
wrong?
is a complete sentence, right?
What is
No
wrong
is a
with that?
complete sentence. Yeah.
Because there's the fear of, oh, what are they going to think? Okay, what are they going to think? They might not like me. Okay, they don't like you. And, right, like, let's get comfortable with that, instead of, oh, what if? Okay, what if? Go there. What if? What is the worst that's going to happen if this person thinks, oh, she was selfish? Okay, and what? Right? It's not the end of
Yeah.
the world. Get okay that there are going to be people who, newsflash, do not like you, right? Who think you're fill in the blank. All right. So what?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. So many great nuggets here that we've shared. Anything else that we haven't covered yet? Any imparting sort of advice or wisdom or parts of your own self-care journey that you would want to share with our listeners today?
If I could go back to a younger version of myself, I would recommend that she unapologetically own all the parts of her, the quirky, the not traditional, the all of it. Just be who you are and own it, and don't try to conform or pretend you're something you're not because you want to be like everybody else. Just be your authentic self. And I think that we go through so much of our lives not doing that, and just being so cookie cutter, that I don't know, just be you, please, just be you.
I love that. I love that. And that's one reason I'll just kind of throw this in there as well. That's one reason that I love Ayurveda. For me, Ayurveda has helped me with that. Ayurveda is the ancient medical system of India. And what it does is it really sees each person as completely unique, completely individual. It really sees that each of us was born with a specific, we call it like a constitution, but a specific sort of composition of strengths and quote unquote weaknesses and qualities and interests that was actually determined according to Ayurveda at the time of conception. And why are we all so unique? To serve our unique purpose in the world. And so if we're trying to fit in and conform and trying to be, liked by everyone by fitting in a certain way, we are denying those unique qualities within ourselves that were actually determined at the time of conception, according to the Ayurvedic perspective, to help us fulfill our unique purpose in this lifetime. So, so with that, I would love for you to share with our listeners where they can learn more about you and the work that you're doing.
I'm everywhere. You can go to my website, coachingwithalyse, ALYSE.com. my therapy website, afctherapy.com. And then I also am making TikTok videos. Don't tell anybody. And some Instagram stuff and Facebook stuff. It's all the same, Coaching with Alyse and AFC Therapy. So yeah, check out what
That's
I
so great. I have not started doing TikTok videos, and many people over the past year or two have told me that I should, and I just haven't been able to go there yet. But I will include all of your links in the show notes below, so our listeners can definitely check that out. Definitely check out the work that Alyse is doing. It really is just phenomenal work, and I know that we are going to have Alyse back on this show. We've just really enjoyed our conversations. Thank you again for being here today, Alyse.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Essential Self-Care Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a positive review, and share this episode with someone you know. And remember, your free guide, 6 simple yet powerful steps to create your radiant life, is waiting for you at radiantlivinginstitute.com. Download it today.